What's going on, guys? Evan the Dark Souls enthusiast here, bringing you another Dark Souls gameplay commentary, but this time not on the PlayStation 3 and not on the Xbox 360. This is actually Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition on the PC. I know it's been the most requested thing on the channel, and I know it hasn't been on the channel until today, so I'm very excited to be bringing you this gameplay commentary, truly. I didn't think I'd be playing any more Dark Souls to this channel for a long time, but finally, my copy arrived from the United Kingdom. I was starting to think it would never get here, and so, here we are, some Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition. Looks and plays very similar to the console version, but it is nice to be playing on a new platform and what looks like slightly sharper graphics. I'm not sure. We'll see how the frame rate stuff goes with time, but pretty excited here to be doing this. So a couple things I want to knock out since this is sort of the first of the Prepare to Die. This is not sort of. This is first of the Prepare to Die uploads. So there's a couple things I want to talk about, a couple things I want to clarify with expectations, and I would just like to welcome everybody to the video series, which I'll decide what I'm naming during the upload, but probably some of the effects of Prepare to Die Wanderlust. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But in any case, some things I did want to talk about, and I've got a little scratch pad here. You'll see I took a little swing at that boss to see if he still took like no damage from your starting weapons, and he does. So I could drop, take another 2 hours of my life to kill him at 2 damage a hit, but there's already an upload up there on the channel of him getting killed by me fist fighting. I don't really think I want to do that again. So a couple things to expect and a couple things I want to make everyone aware of right up front. My name is Evan, as I previously introduced myself. I have a tremendous amount of Dark Souls content on my channel. The quality of that I'll leave up to the viewer to decide how great or not great they think it is. In the past, Dark Souls has been my most requested video series. I upload a variety of other games, however, such as the Call of Duty series, Defense of the Ancients 2, on and off Demon Souls. Haven't done a whole lot of that yet. You get the idea. So I kind of just upload everything I like. I do read all comments, and I respond to probably half. I respond to all comments that I actually have a response to. If you don't receive a reply from me, assume I haven't seen your comment yet, or it's a simple no comment. Sometimes no comment is one of the stronger comments I can give, so just something to be aware of. So some gameplay commentary coming from lots of Dark Souls. I am a graduate student currently pursuing a Master's of Education, and I am a part-time resident director and part-time mental health support technician. So do a lot of different things that I bring into these commentaries. These commentaries do not feature all gameplay talk all the time. When you watch these commentaries, realize that there is already over 2 playthroughs of Dark Souls uploaded to the channel and hours of PvP. So I do have a tremendous amount of just time sank into Dark Souls in various capacities, and as a result of that, I don't always talk about the gameplay for the entire video. A, because I don't necessarily need to narrate the simple things. Here I backstab the zombie so that he dies instantly and it saves time. No, we don't need to have those kind of conversations. These won't always be the smoothest playthroughs either. I'm not trying to speedrun this. I like to take my time. I play Dark Souls because it's one of my favorite games ever made for any platform, so I'm in no rush to finish areas. I like to take my time and explore a little bit. With that said, having sank hundreds and hundreds of hours in this game, finding my way around isn't too much of a challenge. It's just a challenge of remembering where all the items are and things like that. So you'll definitely hear me bring up some philosophical topics at times, how I feel about higher education, how I feel about people in my life, and you'll see me struggling with the equip system here because it's been a while. And just, my musings on a lot of things, so definitely expect to hear some non-gameplay stuff here and there. This series might actually become a live comm, and I've decided that I'll actually see what people have to say on this video if they want to see it live commed. There is no Dark Souls live comm on this channel, so I feel like since we're doing another complete Let's Play of the game, doing another live comm series might actually be a good trick. Just something to mix it up a little bit, because I've commented through this game quite a few times, and people are still excited to see it, or at least, if not, they falsely marketed to me, considering the kind of comments I get on my channel whenever I upload anything else. So we'll see where it happens. These videos tend to be in half-hour to hour installments, depending on how long it takes me to clear a zone and how much I goof around in a zone, etc., etc., etc. So that's just how it is. These are long commentaries, so I do have to talk about a variety of things to occupy the entire slot of time, and sometimes things go longer than I expect, and I actually run out of things to talk about. So I just kind of come up with things on the fly. It'll be pretty clear when that's happening. So those are all things to accept. Still playing around with my audio recording settings for this series. Not sure how loud or quiet I want to be. Things like that. So we're definitely in a state of transition with this, but we'll probably be having another upload this week of the Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition. I'll be posting a new commentary schedule on the Facebook. For those of you that don't know, this channel does have the usual social media options available, and I am a TGN partner, but I am not a professional YouTuber. I make very, very, very little money or any kind of financial compensation for the gameplay commentaries that I do. Also, except I'm a full-time student, which always comes first, so this probably isn't the best channel to be on if you're looking for a gameplay upload every single day. At least not right now. Maybe over Christmas break we can do something with that, but probably not. I'll probably spend my break doing some other things. Alright, so with that little caveat out of the way, I also want to reveal I have not done any reading whatsoever on the Prepare to Die edition. Very, very little. It's like less than 5 minutes of reading regarding what people have discovered in the Prepare to Die edition. The reason being is I kind of want to come in with a fresh perspective and see what I've noticed. So if in the comments people want to correct things, reveal information, it's fine. This isn't like a movie where there's going to be like a spoiler alert kind of thing. It's not that important to me. I'm just sort of let everyone know that for a while there, until I experience things during this playthrough, I won't necessarily know everything that's going on. This is also going to be a complete playthrough. I decided that since it's likely going to be commentated live, there's no reason not to sort of go through everything and have a complete new game playthrough. So eventually I should have a complete new game playthrough, new game plus playthrough, and a lot of PvP action. I'm looking forward to trying this fabled PC matchmaking system, so there's a lot to look forward to, at least for me on this channel, and I hope that everyone is along for the ride, because this has been a really requested game, and I feel in a way it's almost stifled other games I've put up on the channel. So this is just kind of where I stand on things, guys. Those of you that are used to these commentaries are probably expecting some of this. Alright, so I'd like to also take some time to talk about so people have requested some live streaming. Okay, I do not have a Twitch TV account, and I'm not particularly looking to start one. I'm already running the Facebook, the Twitter, not that anyone's ever on the Twitter, and the Steam group, and I've got 2 jobs and all that kind of stuff, so I'm just not really looking to do the Twitch TV streaming thing. My YouTube account does not have live streaming because, to my knowledge, it's basically Machinima partners that have live streaming, and TGN's supposed to get it to us eventually. I have no idea. If TGN actually gets its partners streaming, I will stream PvP action, because I feel like that's the one thing on Dark Souls that is well suited to streaming. I'm not really looking to XSplit a video of myself up and that kind of thing. So just a little thing on live streaming. It could actually come to the channel, but there's no guarantee. And since people keep asking my recording settings for Dark Souls, I use DX Story with 720p quality and lossless codecs. I use Audacity to record my commentary in post or in game and sync it up that way. I also use Power Director 10 as my video editing software. And I do have the standard PVR from Xbox and PlayStation 3. So that's kind of all I have to say about my recording settings. The audio settings kind of change on the fly depending on how I feel it sounds after I field test the video. So that's kind of what's going on. And once again, we are 9 minutes in this commentary, and this is like an hour-long commentary. So if you've never tried to monologue with yourself, it's actually more challenging than you might expect. I know, at least when I used to watch gameplay commentators on YouTube, the good ones and the bad ones, my thought would be, I could do that, I could do better than that, or that was pretty good. I had the whole range of emotions when reacting to other people's commentaries, and I assume the same thing happens with my own. But one thing I can assure everyone, if you've never tried it before, it can actually be a lot harder than it looks. Because you feel yourself drift into rambles and out of rambles. You feel yourself bring your emotional state into the videos. And sometimes you put commentaries up and you're just not having a really good day. And you can feel that come out in your commentary and stuff like that. So it's just an interesting expression of who you are. So those of you that have never commentated, I just want to say it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But then again, it's not the hardest thing to do ever. and it's very hard to make money YouTubing, at least making any significant amount of money. Yes, I realize there are lots of people doing it, but when you look at the people trying to do it versus the people who are successfully doing it, the numbers are very low. So definitely do not get into YouTube commentary for cash. There's much easier ways to make easy money, such as just getting a regular job. Because it actually takes a long time to render these out and set everything up. And, well, you get the idea. So just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention because I still get a lot of questions about commentating, getting into commentating. So if they could find this video, they could hear my thoughts on it. With that said, I did have something I want to talk about today because it was sort of an interesting article. I read a lot of articles on higher education blogs since I work in the field, and I'm sort of an advocate reader of the Chronicle of Higher Education. But in any case, and there's a couple, and I talk about my work and stuff, and that's what we're going to do now. I want to talk about an article I read. It was about an academic ghostwriter who, for those of you that don't know, a ghostwriter is someone who writes something but doesn't reveal their identity. They may write it as someone else or for someone else. In this case, this gentleman is a ghostwriter writing for students for a fee. Basically, he was facilitating them to cheat. And he claims to have assisted students at all levels of the education, whether it be their undergrad, their college, well, that would be their undergrad, their undergraduate, and this is all in the United States, by the way. He has no experience outside the United States education system, but he's helped students obtain masters, bachelors, and and I almost go down right there. Bachelors, and he claims to have helped one PhD candidate pursue his PhD. So this gentleman apparently was making a significant amount of money doing this work. Apparently he got started at Rutgers University, which is a very large university, and he said he sort of came to that conclusion, A, because there was money in it, but B, because he was disillusioned with the higher education system, so he decided to take some sort of poetic revenge. I'm not exactly sure what the ultimate motivation was. It wasn't even clear in the article, but it was basically a combination of wanting to make money and being mad at the education system. And some of the reasons he cited being angry at the education system were he was upset with his classmates' obsession with grades over actual learning, along with the schools, professors. He felt like institutions, particularly the large ones, served as money farms where students were just having their money, their savings, whatever means they're used to pay, and extorted from them. They felt like parking services and fines and things like that, like it's all a big racket to generate revenue. And so I wanted to respond to some of his thoughts. I'll put a link to the article in my YouTube links, or in the links at the end of this video, rather. And you guys can read what he had to say, because I think it raises interesting questions, especially because a lot of people watching these videos, at least according to my YouTube analytics, are either in college, going to college, or have been out of college. Not many people watching my videos apparently have no experience with education whatsoever, being that, we're on YouTube here, primarily out of first world countries where education is highly prized, in some places more so than others. But in any case, I'm a student conduct coordinator. That's part of my job, as I hear and coordinate student conduct hearings about, how students behave. I don't hear academic misconduct, which, hiring someone to write your papers for you is academic misconduct. And I really don't understand, even beyond a higher education setting, how people can do that. Like, I could never let someone else do a gameplay commentary for me or gameplay and then I could take credit for it. I just can't do that. And I really don't understand how anyone else can either. And I've heard some really interesting arguments about this from students and from friends who have maybe done some questionable behavior over the years. So, some examples of questionable behavior. So I had someone very close to me who overslept a final. It happens, and this is actually going to be a dig on a faculty member who I'm not going to name. So one of my friends overslept the final, totally accidental, it happened. And if you ever oversleep your final, first off, don't oversleep your final. But if you oversleep your final, the first thing you need to do is wake up, run, just put clothes on and run to your professor's office and explain what happened. They probably won't fail you, but if they do, that's unfortunate. But run to your professor's office. Don't wait. Don't leave a message on their machine. Don't do anything like that. If you want to send an email, just send an email that you're on your way over to grovel. please phrase it more elegantly than that. But that's basically going to be your grovel moment where it's time to buckle down and really hope that they can help you out, which is what my friend did. He showed up at his professor's office and said, I overslept the final. I have no excuse. I just set an alarm and slept right through it. So I don't know what to do now. If I take a 0% on the final, I'll fail your class, and I'm coming in with a B, and I was hoping to bring this to an A. So if I could just take half credit, anything, could I take the final now to have a shot? So I sit down and what would be the appropriate response if I were a faculty member? Because you don't want to breed irresponsibility. If you just say, yeah, you can just take it now, no repercussions, it feels like you're not holding someone accountable for what they did. I mean, really actually is a simple mistake to make, but at the same time, it is a mistake. And if educators don't hold people accountable for their actions, no one will really understand the consequences of that. And I don't believe the role of higher educators is to be parents necessarily. But at the same time, the higher education system definitely is not preparing students for the real world if it just allows things like that. Example, if you don't pay your bills because you forget or you just don't mail it out, it's really an easy thing to do. If you have a lot of different finances you're keeping track of for whatever reason, and you're, especially if you're paying bills by hand, things like that, it can be easy to miss a bill. It's really easy to pay bills, actually, but at the same time, it's really easy to miss a bill. And when you miss a bill, there isn't a lot of grace involved. Your credit rating could immediately dip, and you will wind up receiving a late fee 9 out of the 10 times. So, or if you forget to move your car, like in certain areas on streets in larger cities, when you're parking, for example, there's like requirements, like you can park here these times, but these times you have to move your car, and you forget to move your car into a parking zone. Well, you could very well be towed or pay a fine. So, should higher education be more understanding because it's a learning environment and the purpose is to teach? But is teaching by example the best way to prepare students? Because I don't want to be so far to say it's a cruel world, and I don't want to say that I've encountered some sort of coldness that makes me qualified to talk about this topic, so much as I'm just saying that I understand personally that the kind of liberties I receive at a higher education institution I would not receive outside the institution. And sometimes I don't know if students know that. They definitely don't let on to knowing that if they do know that, if that makes sense. So, what should this faculty member do? They want to breed responsibility. They want to, in the name of equality, probably find some kind of penalty, because it's not fair to the students who took the final at the correct time to get off. And so what do you do? But at the same time, it seems unfair to fail them for the entire class just because they didn't show up on time. Then again, your syllabus does say those who are not here on time, will fail. So what should people do? What should the faculty member do? Maybe you should share that in the comments. If you're watching this video, what do you think faculty should do in that situation? Personally, I believe I would allow the student to retake the examination with the time either set up through my office hours or through academic affairs, whatever the college's particular policy is for make-up exams, and I would allow them to make up the exam, and I would dock them several points for being late and not showing up on time. Wouldn't be a big deal. I wouldn't even drop them out of the A range. I would probably just, fault them a significant number, but I would fault them on the number of days they've waited. So if they've approached me on the first day of missing the final, if it's a 100-point exam, 10-point scale, they lose, say, that's education jargon. For those of you that don't know what it means, that would be 100 questions, 10-point scale would mean 90%'s an A, 80%'s a B, etc. I'd probably start them at like a 95%, and then each day they missed the exam, I would drop them 5 percentage points, all the way down until the end. I would not contact the student to tell them they missed the exam, because if you don't know you had an exam in my class, that's kind of on you. So that's my take on it. 5 percentage points for each day, starting with that day. The student misses my final, and then I'll just grade it from there on out with no problem. That's kind of my take on it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think would be fair. What this faculty member did is actually probably the worst thing you can do of all. They looked at my dear friends and said, "Of course you showed up for the exam." And they said, "No, Professor, I actually completely missed the exam." Their reply was, "Don't worry about it. I saw you. You were here." And the faculty member writes 100% A on the final examination, puts it in the stack, and goes back to work. I cannot think of a more offending practice to the students not being represented in that meeting, and the faculty member itself. The ultimate admission that the entire class is a waste of time because the final isn't even significant to the professor. I can't think of something worse. And I'm interested to hear your responses, your thoughts on that story. What do you guys think? How was that handled? How should that have been handled? And this plays back to that academic ghostwriter. I've heard really interesting arguments from students about why they should be allowed to hire someone to write papers. Let me share some of those with you. So, I had a student approach me and say, I'm not admitting, we don't even have to get through the backstory. I had a student approach me and basically told me that they were having other people write their papers for them. And I said, well, and this was before I worked at the college. I was like, that's pretty low. And they said, why? We have to spend money, and this is the United States education system, mind you. I know I have some viewers who are in other countries, and your education system doesn't work quite the same way. But here in the United States, if you want to get education, unless you're one of the 1% of the population in our country that qualified for a full ride scholarship, you have to pay through school, basically through student loans, or hope your parents have a significant amount of money that they can back you. In most cases, it means student loans. And the amount of financial funding to the education system has continually reduced over the years. So some quick, since it's an election year here in America, in the United States, and people are sort of really raising questions about this education thing, let me just throw a couple things out there that are irrefutable. Tuition prices have ballooned and continue to increase. The exact cause of why tuition has increased is a culmination of a lot of things. First off, the schools have to acknowledge the money was there. Because federal grants existed, schools were able to raise their tuition and do more and more things. So in part, it is the college's fault that the cost of education has risen to a point. And the Republican National Party, and this is not a political statement. I am a middle of the road voter. I don't vote straight ticket. But a great point of contention for Republican voters is the amount of money, quote unquote, wasted on the education system. And I understand the concerns where if the college is going to raise their tuition for the amount of aid that's available, that's ridiculous. Well, it is, but that's not what colleges are doing, or state universities, any education institution. Basically what's happening is state schools get X dollars from the government to run, and then the rest has to be made up with student tuition. Well, unfortunately, state funding and federal funding to institutions of learning has actually decreased every single year exponentially. Maybe not exponentially, but every single year without fail. So schools are getting less and less money to run every year, but the cost of living and operating a business, or even a nonprofit business like a college, because I think a college in a lot of ways runs like a business, it's reducing. And it costs more and more money to run. It's not reducing. It's becoming harder and harder to run these institutions profitably. These things cost money, and the people that work in these places deserve and want paychecks. I want a paycheck for the 12 hours a week that I put in that week. I want paid for the 70 hours I put in this week. I want paid. I am performing a service that society has deemed as important. Society has decided it is important to educate the people in our country, so the employees of colleges demand a wage. That's not shocking. Pretty much anyone doing any job demands a wage. And with that, the cost of living has increased. I expect my wage to be commensurate with that, and it's not. People working in education, for the most part, are actually underpaid. There are certain professionals that are probably overpaid, but in context, I make $300 a month, and I work probably 25 hours a week. So you can do the simple math and see that I'm not getting rich. Most schools are nonprofits, and I think for-profit schools are absolutely atrocious, and I'm not even going to go there in this commentary. But I'm just sort of giving you guys sort of the background for this topic of education in the United States, where it costs a lot of money to go to school for a variety of reasons: shrinking government aid, increased expenses of learning, and increased expectations from the students. See, students are a funny bunch, myself included. I remember did this when I was a student and not employed. I want things to be better. I think it's outrageous that I have F- internet, according to speed test. That's absurd. I should have better internet. I should have more parking. The food tastes like crap. This is all so expensive. So I want better amenities at my college, but I want it to cost less. There's a challenge for anyone in any phase in their life. How on earth are you going to get more for less? Particularly when a lot of these prices are fixed prices. And that's just kind of where the education system is with students. Students want more and more, but it costs colleges, it's actually costing colleges more to do the things they're already doing, and now students want even more things. So I'm not saying higher education institutions are devoid of squandering of resources. There certainly could be a little bit of thinning, tightening the belt, depending on where you work, where you go to school. Things may or may not be tighter, better, etc. The point, though, is fundamentally, people just want a lot out of their education. They're spending a lot of money to do it. And, it's hard. It's definitely a crisis in the education system in the United States is, how is it going to be paid for? How long can we pay for it? Is it sustainable? Are we educating too many people? Are we not educating enough? How do we get access to underprivileged students? How do we reduce the burden on the middle class? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are all serious considerations in the education system right now, and there's not a whole lot of definitive answers for how it's going to happen. I don't have the answer, and I'm going to have a master's degree in higher education. I'll have an education degree for dealing with higher education. That's sort of an ironic thing to even think about. But getting back to the topic of hand, which is ghostwriting, students argue that because they're already spending so much money to go to school, and that, if education has intrinsic value, why isn't it free? Because I'm one of those people that argues there is a value to being educated. Beyond your enhanced career, beyond any kind of monetary compensation, there is legitimate value in being educated. And I realize that there is learning that occurs outside of a classroom, both on a college campus and just in life. I'm not an elitist person who feels as though because I have a college education, I'm better than someone that doesn't. I definitely know people without a college education who are making a lot more money than me that have a lot of interesting things to say. And that's totally fine. This isn't about social class warfare, about me trying to claim you have to be educated to have an invaluable opinion. But there's certainly value in training your mind. A formal education will train your mind. It will help your brain think. I think there's value in that goes beyond a monetary number, and maybe because I feel that way I'm in education. Because I do feel that education institutions can be wasteful. I do feel that students pay too much. And I do feel that students expect too much, and I think employers are seeing the limitations of the education system. And with that, I see where students feel that the whole thing is sort of consumerized even. I pay money, I want a degree. I feel like that's how private institutions work, private colleges, private schools. We pay money to you, you get us a degree. It's a business relationship. Well, how do you make that a fair business relationship? So basically the model would be, if I pay $5,000 a year in tuition, which will probably be more than that, but let's just bear with me. I pay $5,000 a year for a piece of paper and an education. You need to bestow those things upon me. And in exchange, I will commit to a contract of a certain level of performance. But it doesn't work that way. People will haggle. That's just kind of how it works. People haggle with the education system. I don't necessarily blame them, but it just raises questions about how is this supposed to work. So how do you approach someone who hasn't made the requirements for their degree, but they've spent such a large amount of money trying to obtain it? They obviously feel a certain level of entitlement. The millennial generation of students, at least in the United States, feels a particular amount of entitlement to everything, and this is no different. So how do you cope with those feelings? And these tie directly into the question we're finally coming full circle to is it okay for students to hire someone to do their work? There's no doubt that it's dishonest. There's no doubt that it's lying. But some students do view it as a natural extension of their wealth. I had enough wealth to go to college, or I work a job so I can go to college. Why can't I skim a little money off whatever my funding is to make the higher education process easier? How is it any different than hiring a private tutor to help enhance my knowledge? I'm just paying someone else to do the work I don't consider valuable. Or these are general education classes. I don't care anything about these. I'm just required to have them. So, I'm just going to basically farm it out. I'm going to outsource it. The economy is outsourcing our jobs that we're getting these degrees for. Why can't I outsource the education process? So that's definitely an argument I've heard for, why I should be allowed to farm. I think that's baloney. I feel that when you talk about the value of the education system lowering, that's what's lowering the value of the education process. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend about this recently because she was the kind of student who, when she was in school, She always did all of her reading. She did all of her homework. Rarely, if ever, missed a class. One of those kind of people. And I had some of those qualities too. I rarely, if ever, missed a class, but I usually didn't do my assigned readings. I did my homework, usually last minute. I did a good job, I think. Most of my professors say my level of academic performance was high, but my level of effort was very low. So I was fortunate in that education came somewhat naturally to me, and I could get good results without working extremely hard. That was good to know. I would much rather, more for less is always good, I guess. At least in my mind. I'm results oriented, but it does bother me that philosophically, I work in higher education. I complain about lazy students, but was I a lazy student? I definitely didn't hire people to write my papers, but I definitely wrote my papers at 3 a.m. last minute. But I took the grades for those. Sometimes I got lower grades because of that, and I accepted that. I feel as though these students aren't accepting responsibility for their education. And I poorly play there and go down to a bunch of random zombie skeletons. That's pretty embarrassing show of performance. All right, after that embarrassing death of zombie skeletons, we're back. I usually edit out my trips back to my bloodstains because there's just no need to include them. They're rather boring, and I usually only leave them in if I die on my way back to my bloodstains. So that's one of those little edits that goes on just to reduce the length of the videos and to try to keep things moving at a good pacing. So I was talking about academic ghostwriting and my concerns with the education system, and it just bothers me that I have a bachelor's degree with I think a 3.5, and I almost have my master's, and my girlfriend had like a 3.65 GPA, and she also has her bachelor's. It bothers me that I know she worked so much harder, and her degree will have the same value as mine because the system doesn't really necessarily reward those higher levels of assistance or higher levels of effort by students. It's supposed to show through in your grades, but unfortunately, employers don't necessarily care too much about your grades. Depending on the profession, many employers just don't care. What do you have a degree? That's great. We can hire you now. We don't really care what your grades were per se. So that's definitely something that's sort of throwing off the whole process for me, is the realization that she works so much harder than me, but she only has like a 0.1 GPA difference, and these employers who also have degrees kind of know the score too. They came through a similar system where they may or may not have studied really hard, but at the end of the day, they know the degrees issued are all the same. So you have employers that have gone through the system and already know the limitations of higher education. You have students that are graduating the limitations of higher education, and so I think that one of the reasons one of those freak economic moments why the value of education is being reduced is because students and employers are both aware of the limitations of their education. They're aware that they're not necessarily guaranteed a high-paying job. Employers are aware that having a college education doesn't necessarily ensure that you'll be a good employee. Just things like that. And these are really real considerations, I think, are holding back the education system. But I haven't seen any research facilitate that. That's just Evan's unique perspective on one of the problems, and I'm sort of dancing on the big issue of this academic ghostwriting. Is it okay for students to hire out someone to write their papers? They have the money, and the college has no problem taking their money. The college needs the money. Well, they need the papers written. If they paid $50,000 and they really need an A on this paper, and they can pay sort of buy it out and ensure that they'll get an A and be able to stay in school, the argument is they'd be foolish not to. I think that's a loaded argument. I think that's outright dishonest. Part of the educational process is owning your work. There is no logical justification for skirting the issue, in that if your education is valuable enough to you to drop money to have your paper written, it should be valuable enough for you to study and get the grades you need. If you're not prepared for college, then maybe you shouldn't have gone to college until you were prepared. I do believe everyone deserves a shot at education, but some people need to take that extra time to get to the academic level of rigor they need to. And I'm not foolish enough to believe things are that simple. If you're not academically prepared for college, it can become very difficult to become prepared for college. If you didn't get prepared in high school, it can be hard to get the remedial training you need to go back. I understand that, but maybe higher education isn't for everybody. I think everyone deserves the opportunity, but maybe not everyone should go. If you're just a lousy academic, maybe you should find a career that doesn't require that kind of thing. If you're looking for the intrinsic value of education, community colleges exist, which are normally open enrollment, so you can join up and better yourself. Everyone doesn't need the 4-year experience. So I don't think that argument's valid. No, you can't tell me that a natural extension of your wealth is hiring out papers. That's outrageous. For students who just don't have the academic preparation they need, it's not an issue of financing, it's an issue of necessity. In order to stay in school, I have to pay out these papers. That's not right either, because you're not going to get anything out of your education. You're cheapening my degree because you're skirting it, faking it. You're fake, and the fact that you can fake your degree lowers the value of my degree indirectly. So no, that's not okay either. So in synopsis, I am completely not okay with this academic ghostwriting thing. So it's something that's really weighing heavily on my mind because, when it rains it pours, and like I said, I'm a conduct officer here at a college, so right after reading this article, I had a conduct case with a student that really said there was no problem with them hiring out the creation of their papers, and it's something I'm struggling a lot with because it touches into a lot of the underlying issues with higher education. Some of the more scary things in higher education, like, is it economically sustainable? Is it ethically sound to accept students into college that you don't think are going to make it? Is it ethically sound to not allow students into college you don't think are going to make it? Should you deny them the chance because it looks like they can't make it? Well, that sounds sort of unfair. They didn't really get their fair shot, did they? But is it really fair to let them in when you feel like they won't make it? You're going to probably put them in a substantial amount of debt that they'll have to pay back whether they succeed or not. So there's just a lot of, I know of students who are from other great countries on the planet. Their belief is that maybe education should be free. The United States is so committed to the capitalist ideal that it doesn't want anything to be government run. Education, no. Education needs to be private. The Republican Party push private education. The healthcare needs to be private. This is a capitalist society. Competition breeds excellence. The United States is an interesting place to live in. Don't get me wrong. I love this country. I do love being an American citizen. I've been afforded so many luxuries by being American. The necessity not have to learn another language. That's a perk of being American, I guess. What do you call a person who has one language? American. Kind of shameful I never did learn another language, but I didn't. One of those things that I should have done in my lifetime, but haven't yet. I'm 24 years old. Maybe I'll get there later. But this is a weird place where, in the United States, we have interesting beliefs that. I'm a social and political studies major from undergrad, so I could go on at length about this topic. So have to pick and choose what I want to talk about in these commentaries. Try to pick things I think my viewers will find interesting. So let's talk about, with higher education, one of the big issues is pick yourself up by your bootstraps. And what I mean by that is, in the United States, the public generally believes that they are middle class and or have economic mobility. People in the United States believe that they don't understand the distribution of wealth in the country. I don't think people really understand it, in that the United States, I believe, does breed excellence, but I believe the benefit of that excellence is only felt by a certain percentage of the population. Usually the people higher to the top are more likely to feel the excellence we're breeding. The education system, would education among students breed excellence? Is that what we need to do? Is it, instead of having standards, 90% is an A, 80% is a B, do we need to rank students against each other? Some very competitive universities don't use a grading scale necessarily. Their methodology is, Bill had a 100% on the test, Evan had -4 on the test. So statistically, Evan would still have, if it's a large enough test, Evan could still have a high B on the exam, or maybe even a low A. But is that how we should grade it? Maybe the real trick is, should we make students compete against each other? Do we make the competition the students themselves? Just like in gaming, where the competition... See, I like games like Dark Souls, where the competition mainly comes from the game itself. There's, a PvP side engine, and that's great. But really, it's not the bell curve that's determining performance. It's the difficulty of the game and how you handle it, how you learn, things like that. Should the system be, it's just in relation to how everyone else does? Just like an FPS game, when you're playing the multiplayer, the experience is defined by who you're playing against, not necessarily how good you are. It's only how good you are in relation to others. In a weird way, grading works in the same way because it's all based on a bell curve principle where in the ideal examination, you'd want the vast majority of your students to get a C, an equal amount of students getting D's and B's, and a very small amount of students getting A's and F's. Something like that would be how you would ideally have your examinations work, at least at the philosophical level. But it rarely works that way. Very few professors use that model. It's kind of an outdated system, but I guess certain people are raising the question, is that what we need to do? There are a lot of people in the United States that are making or have made a lot of money without having an education degree. Not specifically an education, but having an education or degree, formal training, things like that. I think their argument is the American dream is sort of to be rich. A lot of policies and governance in this country are actually designed so that people can get rich, and once they get rich, that they are entitled to make an absolute killing. That is a belief in the United States, both by its citizens and by its government, that if you're in that 1% or less that gets this... Oops, I hit my Xbox button. If you're in that 1% or less that makes it and you are rich as heck, you deserve to make all the money you can. The public generally believes that to a point, at least in their voting patterns. In this country, you can actually stand on a platform of, we're not going to tax the rich, we're not going to do things like that. These people are captains in their particular field in one way or another, and as a result, they should be entitled to make astronomical profits, mega profits even. They shouldn't have to pay taxes on that income. And once again, this is not a political statement. I'm just sharing social and political considerations. Is that okay? I don't know. And if so, how does that relate back to the education system? Should students ever be able to go for free? Should they have to pay their way? Should everyone go for free? That won't breed excellence or competition because, this is the theory, would be if education is free, then education is competing against each other, because theoretically there should only be so much money in the system, and as a civil service, people should choose the school they want to go to. So if Evan's School of Dark Souls kind of sucks and people would prefer to go to Epic Name Bros School of Dark Souls, they have that option because the two are in competition. So the vast majority of students start going to Epic Name Bros, and because so many people go there, Epic Name Bro can't offer the same level of service. But due to the performance of Epic Name Bro, Evan's channel had to improve. And because Evan's channel is now improved, people are leaving the oversaturated Epic Name Bro to come, learn Dark Souls from Evan. So there's just things like that. Capitalism, economics, something that's even hard to discuss in videos, particularly at this very detached level where I'm trying to relate multiple topics together. But this is kind of where my mind is right now. I like to swim in thought like this. Maybe this is why I enjoyed the education system, because even if I wasn't doing my readings or studying as much as I probably should have, at the end of the day I was always thinking about the material. And I think as a result I got a true education. I didn't get a 4.0 GPA and graduate summa cum laude. I didn't put in all the effort I should have, but I always engaged with my material, and that was important to me. I've retained a lot of the information I learned in undergraduate, so I think a lot of the characterizations of higher education actually turned out to not be true for me. It wasn't just a piece of paper to me. I loved my education. I loved the worldview and the knowledge I've gained about life, about thinking. I feel like I've learned a lot, and the value of education is immeasurable. I have a very, very close friend to me that actually dropped out of college, and by dropping out of college, he was able to find his dream job, make a substantial living for himself, and all around, by the measures of modern society, kind of put me to shame. He has a job he loves, and he makes a lot more money than I do. I have a job I kind of love, and I make a lot less money than him. So by standard measures, he's on top of his game. But look at that right there, guys. I'm a thrill seeker. But I don't know. I think that dropping out of college was still the worst decision he ever made. I think that there's just so much value in having an education, and that's, I thank God every day that I'm actually agnostic, but I thank higher power. I thank whatever force you would prefer every day for the opportunities I've had as a result of education. Not financially, just personally. So education means a lot to me, and I'm kind of hoping to see how people feel on this channel. Once again, looking at my analytics, a lot of people on this channel are going to be going to school soon. What do you hope to get out of it? Is it about a higher paying job? Is it about it? What are we doing? Why are we going to school? I think that's one of the big questions a lot of students aren't asking, or they're just going because that's what everyone does now. And the bachelor's degree has become saturated, and that's unlikely to change. So why is everyone going to school? Let me know in the comments. How do you feel about ghostwriters? Is it okay for people to farm out their creation of papers? What about the people writing these papers? Is it ethically unsound for them to help students cheat on their papers so they can make a living? Is that okay? Is it worth going to school for things other than financial benefit? Do I overrate the value of an education? These are all kinds of conversation I like to have. So beyond playing video games, I'm a part-time philosopher, and I like to think. I'll probably be thinking about this until I upload my next commentary, where I'll maybe even revisit this topic and try to narrow down some finer points. So I am really interested to hear how you guys feel about this. I will be trying to respond to comments, particularly on this video. So everyone let me know how you feel about my rants and ravings about education, and particularly for those of you in other countries who happen to watch these videos. I'm very interested to hear how you perceive the education system in the United States. I can probably answer some questions. I'm not far from my master's in this field. I can offer a certain degree of expert knowledge. So here comes the Taurus demon boss fight, which will be the end of the video, this first commentary session. Many of these will be live in the future, so they'll probably run a little differently. I find my live comms tend to focus on the gameplay a little bit more, although I think my post commentaries are better. So we'll see where we wind up with this video series. There's a lot that basically needs doing with this series. All of the Prepare to Die edition of Dark Souls is gonna come through. It's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it. I kind of hate this Games for Windows Live. I almost wish it was a Steam game, but what can you do? I think when the Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition was coming out, everybody was actually going to buy it on PC was basically saying what it preferred Steam. And to be fair, Games for Windows Live did not cause me any problems. It's just not as clean of a polished client as Steam. But then again, I actually, once again, kind of traditional in that I liked when games didn't use Steam, didn't use Games for Windows Live, didn't use any of that stuff. But then again, having the Steam virtual library available to me has been pretty nice. When I travel and stuff like that, I've enjoyed having the opportunity to get any game I own anytime I wish. And this commentary is quickly coming to a close, which is good timing because my dear friend that I previously mentioned, who is actually, got his dream job and everything like that, he's coming up here, and so maybe we'll talk about some of these topics, these education topics. It's funny how things become really important to you sometimes. When I went to college, I had a high interest in college, but it wasn't ever really that important to me. Now I spend a lot of time thinking about the education system, partly because I work in it, and that, when you work and deal with something every day, it changes the value to you. But not only that, but I don't know, I think these are very real issues. So you'll see me coming up here. I realize I could have just swatted him for that final hit, but I don't think all players have actually seen him come up here. They haven't taken the risk to see him jump up here, so I wanted to go ahead and show that he will come up on this tower. This isn't like a safe haven where you can shoot him with an archer. And that second jump is pretty cool. Thankfully, that Hollow Soldier shield dropped. That kind of would have sucked blocking if I had the wooden shield. So we bring down the Taurus demon, and that's the end of this gameplay commentary. So let me know what you guys think, and I hope to see everyone next time. Hoping to bring back some viewers I haven't seen in a while because they've been waiting for the Dark Souls stuff. Alright everyone, thanks for watching, and as always, take care.